Welcome back to Computer Animation. This is again class number 2, and this is your next introductory lesson. And this is going to be just a brief introduction to Adobe After Effects. And I put a link in here just to show you, if you haven't already installed the Adobe Creative Suite, this is the link to the UNCW website here that will basically, you can sign up through here to get the Adobe Creative Cloud if you haven't already. Oh, I have a very loud kitty cat with me, so I'm sorry for all the meows. But this can walk you through all the process of how do you set up and gain access and download it. You can basically use your university login to get access to it. So I just want to make sure that you knew where that was at, and easy resource. I know most of you have already installed the Creative Cloud. You might not have installed After Effects, so make sure you go up and use your Adobe Creative Cloud app, and then you can go ahead and install After Effects. And make sure you get the newest version of it that's out there as well, okay? All right. So once you're in here, we're just going to do a quick introduction. I'm going to walk you through the interface. I'm going to show you how to import and export various assets, images, movie files. You can even do 3D stuff. Eventually down the road, you're obviously going to be doing a lot more with that. Timeline introduction, quick one on the text tool, and then some basics of animation, and then we'll go ahead and export as an MP4. So I've got Adobe After Effects already open right now just to make things a little bit quicker. So once you open up for the first time, you're going to get this sort of like pop-up window, learn more, lots of really great little like built-in tutorials here. You can also open up like past projects. So I use After Effects quite a bit, so I've got a lot of past projects in here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project though. And within that new project, we're pretty simple. It's blank right now. There's not really a lot going on. If I want to, I can go ahead and create a new composition. So a project is the like overall kind of container for all of your assets and compositions. Compositions are really like individual timelines which can be exported as a movie when you're done, or as an animated GIF, or whatever your export options. So you can have multiple compositions inside of one project. And this is really handy because it allows you to make multiple compositions, but also you can nest one composition inside of another. We'll get to that in a more advanced lesson down the road. So I'm just going to start off and create a new composition. And this is where we're really going to designate, like what size are we going to go with here. So I have it under custom right now, but I'm going to go down for most of you. We're going to go with 1080p. So we're going to do like HD, TV, 1080p, 29.97, or for a lot of animation work, it's 24 frames, so that's fine too. But you want to make sure that these dimensions end out at 1920 by 1080. And you can set the duration of this as well. So, this is like 13 minutes right now. We definitely don't want that long. I'm going to go ahead and just set this to like 20 seconds, just so we don't have like a massive timeline. And I'll go ahead and set that to 0. All right, cool. You can also choose your background color, but you can change that later. There's some advanced stuff in here you don't need to worry about right now, 3D rendering stuff. This is really all you need to get going. Leave everything else on by default. So HD TV 1080p, either 24 or the 29.97 frames per second, whatever your duration is. And again, that can all be changed in whatever background color you want to get started with. So by doing that, you'll see over here on the left, this is sort of my project window. This is where all my assets are going to be located. And you'll notice this first composition was in here as well. I could have named it, but I can also right-click on it any time and say like, animation number 1. And you'll notice that that's also this little tab right here. So this is where we can make another composition if we wanted to, and you'll see it'll load up. So I could call this now animation number 2. It'll keep all of my last settings, hit OK, and there's a second one. And you'll notice I have these 2 tabs now, and each one is its own timeline, which is really handy. So now let's bring in some other items. I could either drag them, like I could move After Effects over and just drag and drop them into here, or I can go to File, Import. I can import a single file, or I can import multiple files. I'll just do a single file for now, and I can go look on my computer right now and look for various files. So I'm going to go to my desktop and grab some stuff, okay? So let's see. That's a nice one. I'll bring in that image. So now I have a JPEG image. I'll import another file. I'm going to bring in like a movie file of some sort. And let's see what else we have here. So these are a lot of 3D models, so bear with me here. Here, I'll pull something in off my archive drive here. Let's go with one of these wave files. There we go. All right, cool. So now I have a movie file. You see as I click on that, I get a little preview. That's 1920 by 1080. It's 42 seconds long. I have a JPEG in here. It's 1600 by 18. If I want to right now, in Animation 1, I can either like double click the composition to make it come up, or I can click on one of these tabs. But I can basically come in here and say, let's drag this onto my timeline. And as I drag it onto my timeline, there it is. I had to move it over just a little bit. If I hold down Shift, it'll snap to wherever the cursor is right here. And I can go ahead and scrub through. It's not quite like Adobe Premiere. I can hit the space bar, but it doesn't play back in like real time. It doesn't process video in real time the same way Premiere would. But it allows you to do a lot of other things as well. I'm using my scroll wheel to zoom out a little bit on my main window here, but you can also go here and say like 50%, or you can say fit so that it fits fully to the window. But you see if I click on it right now, I can see these little handlebars around the outside of it, which basically means I can move this video clip around, I can scale it, I can do all sorts of things to it. Also, this clip has audio in it, so I can turn off its visibility, I can turn on and off its audio, and just below that on the timeline, this little arrow really unfolds a lot of other things. So I have audio in here. If you want, you can unfold all the way down to kind of see the waveform of the audio. It usually takes a second for it to show up. That's not as important right now. But I can start to set keyframes. I can play with opacity. So if I want to, bring down the opacity of this clip, I can do all sorts of different things in here. I can play with its position, its scale. I can rotate. There's a lot of different things here I can change. There's its scale again. I can change its positions by changing these numbers. I'm actually just clicking and dragging. That's why I'm getting that little arrow. Or you can click into it and type in a specific value, which is really nice as well. So I'm just kind of giving you that introduction to how things work. In the timeline here, I have kind of a zoom in where I can zoom into individual frames, or I can zoom out and see the whole thing, which is really handy. I'm going to bring in this JPEG as well. And this works like in layers, just like in Photoshop. So now I have that smaller image on top of my video image. If I wanted to, I could scale this down. Again, I can unfold the little arrow next to it on the timeline. I could play with its opacity. There's a lot of different things you can do inside of here. We'll get to more advanced features in the future here. But there's a lot that you can do inside of After Effects. It is a full composition, motion graphics, all sorts of different things going on tool. There's a lot of effects in here as well that you can play around with individual layers that open up, all sorts of neat stuff like filters in Photoshop, etc., etc. But let's see, last thing I want to show you today, just to get you started, is the type tool. So I can come in here and I can type something into here as well. I can drag out a text box and I can type in blue skies. And I can select that. And you see by doing that, my type window came up over here on the right. I could make this a much bigger font. There we go. I could change different font styles if I want to. So I could scroll down through all of my active fonts right now and find something a little bit more interesting. Let's go with, oh, I don't know. I don't have a lot of good fonts on this computer. They're all on my laptop. But I guess I could do that one. Ugh, that is ugly. Let's try. I guess we'll just keep it simple. We'll go with Times. So I can take that. I can move it around. You can see I now have this font layer that's on top of everything. Again, I could play around with its size. I could play around with all sorts of different things in here. Spacings, scalings. I can stretch it. The space between the letters, the kerning. All sorts of different things. And right off the bat, now if I play this, I can have my movie going on in the background. I've got the blue skies. I've got my text, right? But how can I animate this? Well, I'm just going to give you an introduction with just the text. So if I unfold that and I unfold text, the first thing I could do is maybe animate from the beginning. I could have it almost look like it's fading in. So I can set a keyframe next to the word opacity here by hitting this little stopwatch button. You'll see the little blue diamond now has appeared on my timeline right there. That's that keyframe that I just created. So as long as my cursor's on there, I could set that to 0 opacity. Then I could come out to, say, the 5-second mark, and I could set that to 100 opacity. And if I move my cursor, those are the keyframes. These are the tweens in between. So it fades down. So now as I hit the space bar, I get it rolling up, coming to full opacity by the time it gets to about 4.5 seconds on the timeline. Not only that, but if I wanted to, I could make it move in from off screen. So I could go ahead and come here and set a keyframe for position. And then if I roll back to the 0 mark on my timeline there, I could go ahead and move this up off frame. And you'll see, because I already set one keyframe and then I move it, once I've moved my cursor to another position on the timeline, it automatically made a keyframe. So now I'm going to get this nice fade in as it comes down and stops right in the middle afterwards. Awesome, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save my project real quick. So animation example. I just did Command S to bring that up. Desktop. Let's save that on my desktop. Save it. That was file, save. I could do save as and save a copy, whatever I want to do. So maybe I want to go ahead and render this out. You'll notice this little bar here that has these blue handles. It's like the second one down from the top on the timeline. This will control kind of what gets rendered or what gets previewed. I'll go ahead and leave it at 20 seconds, but ultimately I only have about 5 seconds worth of animation. So, you know, I could come down to here and just say only render out those 5 seconds, or I can stretch it back out. Now, After Effects does have the ability to render right out of After Effects, but I highly recommend you use Adobe Media Encoder instead. It has way more export options, and it's just faster. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go down to Export and choose Add to Adobe Media Encoder. Now, yeah, I got to wait for a second because Media Encoder takes a second to open up. You'll see here it comes. It's going to open up as a separate application. Once it's actually loaded into Media Encoder, though, you can actually go ahead and close After Effects. Excuse me, get a little sip of water there. All right, let's give Media Encoder just a second, and then we'll wrap things up. It also always takes a second for the After Effects file to show up, so sometimes you just have to be patient. Sometimes it can take up to 20-30 seconds for it to show up here in your queue. But this is Adobe Media Encoder. Over here on the left is sort of a media browser to find things. On the left, these are little presets. We're actually going to work with a web video preset. We're going to save this out with like a YouTube 1080p setting. So there it is. It just popped in. Like I said, sometimes you just have to be patient. Just by default, it used the last thing I used, so I definitely don't want to use the YouTube 4K Ultra. I want to go ahead and use the 1080p. So I'm going to grab YouTube or Vimeo is what I recommend. So I'm going to grab YouTube's 1080p, and I'm just going to drag it over onto there. And you can see it replaced it just by doing that, right? If I click on Output, this is where I can save it. So give it a second here. There we go. I'm going to save it to my desktop and call it Animation 1. That looks good. If you click this, you can actually customize the settings. But for right now, we're not going to get into that. We'll look at more complex Adobe Media Encoder stuff down the road. We're just going to use these presets to get started. And all I have to do at this point is hit the Q button. So I hit this little green Start Q. And there it goes. It's going to start. It's connecting. It always has to do this little connect to dynamic link server. So it's kind of what allows it to connect between After Effects and Adobe Media Encoder. There it goes. It's reading, and it's spitting it out rather fast. I mean, it's only 20 seconds worth of animation, and really only the first 5 seconds are animated, and the rest is just pre-made video. So as soon as this is done, we'll take a look at the video. Like I said, After Effects doesn't even have to be open during this. I can go ahead and quit. It'll keep going on its own. It is done. I'm going to go to my desktop, open it up, and here we go. Just that simple. And, you know, that's what your homework assignments are all about, is just kind of getting you comfortable in After Effects. I just gave you that intro crash course, but this should get you going. And just remember, the homework assignments that I'm giving you, you don't have to do it exactly what's in there. You can just kind of like review them and learn from them and apply it to your Project 1 assignment. But, you know, if you, for this first one and these first couple, if you just want to create what's in this assignment, if I click on it right here, these are these 3 links that you're going to do, that's fine too. down the road, I'm going to want you to just kind of apply what you learned to your current project. I know you don't have a lot yet for project one, so that's okay, but I just want to give you those options. And one last thing I want to mention, if I go back to our modules here, there will be videos in that section. That's what I'm making right now for you. But like if I go back to class 1, when you are viewing my tutorial videos, it's in YouTube. If I go full screen here, make sure you're always using the 4K setting down here. I make them all in 4K, but by default, it might have put you on, let me turn that down. It might have put you on like a lower res. So always make sure you come in here and you click on the quality level and choose that 2160 4K. This is going to be really important when you're in doing the Maya stuff, because Maya has so many tiny little windows. If you're using the lower res ones, you're not going to be able to see things well. So I just wanted to make a special note of that because I didn't do that in the first class. All right, I'm going to close out of that and go back to our modules here. So again, that should wrap up everything you need for class number 2. You've already done the storyboard example video. This is the intro to After Effects. Please do get in touch if you have any questions or any trouble along the way. And yeah, thank you very much.